Welcome back. This is RGR. Little bit of an impromptu thing. Woke up this morning to the CBA having been ratified by the players, and that changes a few things as to what we think is going to happen, and honestly what needs to happen in order for this free agency period to move forward. There's a lot to go on, and I'm kind of glad that they got it done, but there are a couple of takeaways that we really need to cover as well. So while I'm here in my quarantine area, thanks to this COVID virus, hope you guys are doing well. And I do want to take a chance to go over a couple of things as what's going on with this ratification. Now, it certainly is a payoff for what the younger players need in terms of short careers. Getting that $100,000 a year makes a big difference. If you're a guy that's planning to save for your future, based on a 4-year, which is the average career in the NFL, that's pretty tight in terms of the time that you can make your money to try to set yourself up for what you're going to do next in life. Because post-football is always an interesting question. And there are a lot of guys that don't prepare that very well. So this extra money for the rank and file, for the guys that are lower down on the earnings heap, is important. It allows them to kind of salt away something that they can use for later years. And the way that works out in the end is that I think the owners made an interesting proposal, and it was clearly aimed at getting those players to buy into it. And it certainly worked. It's something that they're going to have to deal with for the next 10 years. So I think that the owners got what they wanted. They didn't have to give up 50% revenue share. They didn't have to continue to support their battle back and forth with the Players Association. Now, the Players Association had what was nearly an even split in the vote. And I think for them, the consequences are a little bit more dire. Now, those that make a lot of money in this league are not going to be terribly happy with it. There's some limitations there. The rank and file are the ones that are making the bigger steps forward. And I think one of the things that has been really, really underwhelming or undercovered really in the mainstream media is that getting pension at 3 years makes a huge difference. It is one of those deals. We're going to fix this as we're trying to do this on the fly. It's one of the deals that, if you think about what that means for your life, for you that are approaching pension age, or your parents that are approaching pension age, 401ks, the same kind of thing. That's a big difference in what your life looks like over the course of your life, not just over the course of your career in the NFL. So that gives the guys a lot to think about. Healthcare for the older players, I think, is very important as well, and something that younger players can, I think, with all the player safety, quote unquote, I think that's putting an emphasis on it, and it's teaching guys to think a little bit farther down the line, which I think in the end is a good thing for everybody involved, and thinking long-term ramifications. But there are some downsides, and this quote unquote civil war that I've seen talked about, the biggest thing that stands out to me is that there's problems with buy-in. And I don't mean on the CBA, I mean on the process. 20% of the NFLPA members didn't vote on it, and that's a problem. You're talking close to 500 guys that elected not to make a decision either way. And that's a lost opportunity, whether you agreed with it or not, whether you were trying to change your vote or not. Taking control of your life path, of your career path, as much as you possibly can should be something that everybody should be focused on. Whether you're an NFL player or driving a FedEx truck, you have to take control of your life when you have those opportunities, and I think that sets you up for not only more fulfillment in your life, but not getting the short end of the stick as often. So that's disappointing. Another thing that's very disappointing is I think the way that the NFLPA apparently tried to communicate. They did elect some new people, including J.C. Treader, to the NFLPA presidency. So there were some new voices, but the communication didn't seem to be there, as far as I can tell, because of A, that low vote, and B, what I think is some serious holes in this proposal. Yes, there's more money on the table for the younger players. Yes, there is the pension. Yes, there is better health care for the older players. And I know some of the older players were really lobbying there towards the end of the weekend when the deadline was coming down. And you have to give them their credit, and you have to take their point of view into account when you're trying to make your decision. That's certainly true. But here's the biggest thing for me. I don't mind the 17-game season. The players do. A lot of them do, and that's perfectly fair. But here's the thing. You're going to lose a preseason game, which I think is a waste anyway. I think just risks injury. So that's always a problem. But I think the bigger thing is that they didn't get the bye to go with the 17th game. Now, if you have 2 byes in a given season and you're playing an extra game, it really allows you that extra recovery time to get over the hump, to keep yourself healthy, and try to give yourself that extra time to heal up. And if it's mid-season, if they do what they've done in the past and keep it not towards the ends of the games, I think week 4 is the first bye that you can have. If you spread that out, that really helps. It really helps if you have to play on Thursday night games. It helps, honestly, for all primetime games if you have an extra week of recovery in there. And I thought that was key. And there's really no reason that I think the NFL would have barked back about it, because it gives the NFL an opportunity to have an extra week of a broadcast schedule, minus 4 to 6 teams. That's not a big hit for them, and they still get to draw the season out another week, which helps their bottom line in terms of revenue, what they're trying to get done, and all the money that's coming in, not to mention giving more product to the networks as they negotiate the next TV deals with whoever the providers are going to be, multiple providers from what we've heard to this point. That is a lot of bargaining power. I think it's something, had the NFLPA pushed back and demanded a second bye week, I think it's something they probably would have gotten. It wouldn't have happened this year. It wouldn't have happened in the time frame. And I think between the virus and everything else, I think that is part of the aspect that did come into play for them trying to get it done. In the end, I think it puts the players a little bit more at risk, and I find it a little bit Hippocratic. No, that's the oath that you're trying to protect players, and it goes into that. The Hippocratic Oath is about protecting your patients first. And if the league is truly concerned about player safety, it should have been in the proposal to begin with, that an extra game buys you an extra bye week. I think they would have given in on that. Had there been a time frame, they could have gotten it done, but the framing of this deal was such that the push was to get it done as soon as possible, as fast as possible. And I think that's a problem for the older players that probably know a little bit better, that are trying to think bigger picture, quite frankly, because they've made their money, rather than the younger players that are thinking about, hey, if I only have to make it through 3 seasons, I have to make 3 rosters in order to get a pension. That's a significant difference. So I would have liked to seen some more back and forth on that. I think it should have paid off in terms of the overall player health and safety by alleviating some of that. I think in the end, what's going to happen in the next CBA is probably the biggest sticking point, is as you see all these other contracts roll through, Lord forbid there's expansion into Europe or anywhere else for a permanent kind of thing, a prolonged series of international games. You're going to see that extra bye week be really missing, and you're also going to see a lot of lost revenue between that, the new TV contracts, etc. I think the next CBA is going to be set up to be a much bigger battle in terms of revenue split, with not getting to the 50% threshold where the players are actually making 50% of the revenue that the league generates. I think that's going to be a big sticking point for any of these players that might still be there. It's not going to be very many. You're talking about guys that were drafted in the last 2 years, probably at the earliest. And probably those drafted this year, next year, are going to be those that survive in the league long enough to actually be part of that decision-making process next time. And that really limits, the institutional memory that you have to have for the ongoing generations of NFL players to combat what these owners that sit in the same position decade after decade. They have a much wider view of what's going to happen economically, stadium-wise. There's a whole lot of things that go into it. It's important for players to get, I think, better representation in terms of the long game. guys that have been there before, maybe an advisory council of veteran players, of players that are now out of the league and are not worried about current earnings. I think that may end up being very, very important for the longevity of the NFLPA and how these players are treated post-playing career. So that's my reaction this morning. I hope you guys are all doing good. Let me know what you think. We'll talk later in the weekend on the Monday Night Q&A about Chris Jones and what it means going forward for a lot of the free agency and who might be moving around the NFL. So have a good one. Thanks for checking this one out. Hit these other videos as they come up, and I'll talk to you next time.